Hello and welcome to Take Back Time. My name is Penny Zenker, and on this show, we focus on how we can help you to work smarter. I find people who think differently or just think from a more strategic versus tactical perspective that help you get a new perspective on maybe some old challenges. And today I'm super excited to have Amanda Holmes with us. Amanda is CEO of Chet Holmes International, which has assisted over 250,000 businesses worldwide based on Chet Holmes, her father, his New York Times bestseller, The Ultimate Sales Machine. I worked with Amanda and her father, back when Chet was partnering with Tony Robbins. And so this is especially great to have you here, Amanda. And also, I want to mention in the beginning a little bit about your start at your father's company, which was, unfortunately, when he passed, you went from sort of a music career. I think you were a singer beforehand, and jumped in as CEO of this organization to continue running it, which had to be incredibly difficult. So welcome to the show. And I'd love to start there if we could.
Thank you. Of course. Yes. I do find it's a little bit rare. It did, when the story hit on Inc., it was the second most shared story that day, which was very exciting, of just this idea that I'm 24 years old. There was no plan for me to take over that business. I mean, you probably know, right? You were in the fold, and my father was ill, but never once in the year and a half that I stayed in the hospital with him did we ever discuss that I would take over. He never said, these are the companies that I run. This is who runs them. This is what's going on. These are my future goals for the company. Nothing. So he passed, and I really had to, I loved my father, was very close to him. So it was very emotional for me. I think the first time I saw the P&L, I just burst out into tears. It was just terrifying. I didn't know what half of the companies were. Right. And everybody was double my age. It's a consulting firm, right, for established businesses. And here I am, like, well, I can play you a song.
Right. Can I sing to you guys?
I want me to pick up a guitar, right? So it was very scary. So for the first several years, I just tried to replace my father with different C-suites, different CEOs, different CMOs, different CTOs. And then ultimately I stepped in 2 years later as CEO, and it's been about 7 years now. So we doubled sales last year, which was nice. And we're just continuing to take my father's legacy, the foundation that he created, and build upon it and just adapt it to what it looks like today. We have 12 core competencies for doubling sales, and they still work better than ever today. I mean, that book is voted now in the top 10 most recommended sales books of all time.
Absolutely. It's a classic. I mean, I still recommend it to people, they're tried and true strategies. And, and it's amazing that more people aren't actively using those strategies. It's a gold mine, that book, because they're all in there.
Yeah. Yes. So that's what
Today we were going to focus on one of those strategies, right? Which was the dream buyer strategy, to help people to, stop sort of the spray and pray approach of their whole sales process, and really get clear on who they want as their best customers, right?
Yes, it's the fastest, least expensive way to double sales. And this one strategy has doubled the sales of more companies than any other. It doesn't matter what industry, it doesn't matter what country, what language. This is just a system that works.
So, tell us a story about, your dad had such great stories of where this came from. Yes. So if you could share one of those stories, that would be great.
Yes. So he worked with a billionaire, Charlie Munger. Maybe you've heard of Warren Buffett. It's his co-chairman of Berkshire Hathaway. And he was able to double the sales of 9 different divisions, all within 12 to 15 months, and several divisions doubled multiple years consecutively. What he realized from working with 60 of the Fortune 500 was, I'm predating myself. He worked with the Fortune 500, then he worked with Charlie, got his big break, and then worked with more of the Fortune 500. But he realized that there is a system for how to double your sales. And he was actually a karate master. So there's only a few ways that you can punch and kick, right? It's the same thing in business. And a quotable quote that I love from him is, mastery isn't about doing 4,000 different things. It's about doing 12 things 4,000 times. So he created this system for how to win those big fish deals that could completely change your world. So he was given a list by Charlie of 2,000 different potential prospects and said, okay, cold call these 2,000 people. He analyzed the list of 2,000 and he realized that only 167 of them bought 95% of his space. He was selling advertising for a newspaper.
Right.
So he went, and instead of marketing to 2,000, he just led an intensive dream. We can call it a dream 100 effort, or a best buyer strategy, a dream buyer strategy. So he went after those 167 in a consistent effort. So instead of, spending all this money on marketing to go after so many, he just sent out a mailer twice a month, and then followed up with a phone call twice a month, and followed up with an email. And at that time he was doing faxing. Today we have, Instagram DM, we have Facebook ads, we have all of these different mediums. But at that time, he just consistently marketed to them. And for the first 4 months, he got nothing, which, people started talking in the halls, who's this great sales guy? He hasn't gotten a deal, but he was going after the biggest deals in the industry. In this 5th month, he closed the largest contract that company had ever seen. It was Xerox. He brought them into the industry. And then the remaining 6 months, he closed 28 more. They doubled sales in the 6th month and continued to double sales multiple years consecutively, because they realized that there is a process to refine how to go after those big fish clients and repeatedly do that with your entire staff so that it runs like a machine.
What I love about that is, the 95%, right? The 5% that are the target, right? That's, in a way, that's the Pareto principle. So it's like, why aren't we living? I talk about that also when we talk about where we spend our time, right? This is also a time management solution. Yes. In the context of or I should say a performance management solution, right? Is to say that this is the 20% that's going to make 80% of the difference. So why bother with all the others? Focus on what's most strategic. And so he's living the Pareto principle and teaching others to live it when it comes to sales. Yeah.
I have to say, tying to what you're saying, exactly 100%. And I can't tell you how many times we've had a client where me or all of our coaches and consultants will say, okay, so take a list of all your current clientele and look, how much do each of them generate you in revenue? And it doesn't get old to watch the shock on their face where they say, oh my gosh, only 15% of my clientele are producing 80% of my revenue, right? So the first thing we do with coaching, right, is to say, okay, then how do we just focus on them? Right? This is all busy work. This is just taking up your time, energy, efficiency would be a completely different place if we just niched, right?
And that being said, just to have people understand who are listening, this also becomes a really valuable communication tool to the organization, because I was in a completely different context, working with, inside as senior management in a market research company. And we were having to turn around a division that had been failing for years. And we had to do that analysis and find out that we had 3 accounts that were going to make the difference to us to stay and create something into the future. Wow. But nobody else in the organization could understand why we were focusing on this small subset. And they were upset, like, you've got to do something for these. So it became so easy to communicate that by doing the analysis and showing them, hey, look, here's where the money is, here's where our future is. And it made it so easy for everybody to understand the strategy. So I think it's also maybe left out in the idea of when we can transparently communicate that, it can be really powerful for the organization to put, really that direct focus into just those things that are most important.
Yes. Oh my goodness. So many great stories. But yes, I'll stop there.
Awesome. No, I know you've got a ton of amazing stories. And I do love that quote too, that you said about doing, 12 things 4,000 times. I always fell back on that as well, about how important that is. And I remember, the way he used to tell the story too, is that Charlie would call him in and say, Chet, are you doing something illegal here?
Right.
No.
Never seen anybody double sales 3 years in a row. Are you sure we're not lying, cheating, or stealing? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, since you have this trend of talking about time management as well, I find it really interesting because inheriting the business, like I became a student of my father, right? I watched his training program every single day for 6 months straight. I read his book because I had never had the formal training, and
Right.
I run the company now as what he trained on, right? So I have the key impact areas in the business, and 1 hour a week we meet on those things and we discuss those things, right? To make sure that we're perpetually improving. So that 1 hour a week formula of what are the 12 ways that you increase your business, you should meet on them and improve them just once a week, 1 hour a week, that commitment. So recently I've been spending, I know.
It's like, people listen, that's all it takes is 1 hour a week focused on the thing that's most important. Isn't it crazy that like, that is the thing that they can't make time for? So,
and the overwhelm, like I'd been spending quite a bit of time on Clubhouse for a while and just asking people, what's your question? And they'd say, I'm so overwhelmed with Clubhouse. I spend 6 hours here and I just don't, I mean, you can get, yeah. There's lots of rabbit holes with social. And so I just keep telling everybody, I understand that Clubhouse is important to my business, and I do 1 hour a week of Clubhouse. I run a room, I moderate a room every Friday afternoon, 1 hour a week, so that I make sure that I'm doing that. And it's a part of my world, and it's a consistent basis, and it just continues to bring me in business. And that's nice. It's not everything to my business. Right. So it's just something that I schedule 1 hour a week. Then I don't feel overwhelmed. I'm managing it. I'm being proactive. I'm managing expectations. It feels great. So it even works with social, right? Can you do 1 hour a week on social? What is that? What is that commitment?
Absolutely. So let's come back to the best buyer and that strategy. And let's talk a little bit more about, what are the steps for people that this is maybe a new concept? Like, I get it. Okay. It's about defining who my best buyers. I've defined avatars before. Let's talk about what's the difference between defining your avatar and who your ideal customer is, and how you do that in this context.
This is such a great point, because people have learned, Russell Brunson's somebody that has put out the Dream 100 as a concept. I mean, he learned from my father, right? And has really grown it. They went from 0 to 100 million in 4 years, ClickFunnels. What a great success story of my father's concept, right? But the part that's been lost is the point. The point of this process is to go from, I never heard of this company, to, oh yes, I've heard of this company, to, I work with this company and I love them. I continually work with them and I send them lots of clients, right? So at first, people thought that the Dream 100 or the best buyer strategy was something where you send them direct mail. And if you send them direct mail, you're going to get this client.
Right.
But what was lost is all of these millennials, my generation came in and said, okay, direct mail. Wow, this is a foreign concept, because it does break through the clutter, right? We have, your average prospect is looking at 3,000 different commercial messages every single day. They are overwhelmed with information. So to be able to break through the clutter is great if you have some really fun, like a flashlight, and the letter says, are you shining the light on this problem that's facing you in your business? It's clever, right? It actually gets the attention rather than a cold email.
Yeah.
But what was missing was a follow-up. They thought that they were just supposed to send this out and then people would respond to them. No, it needs to be a follow-up with maybe picking up the phone and dialing them and trying to get their appointment. Oh, did you get my mailer? Did you see that flashlight? I have a really great education for you on the 3 things you need to know that's putting businesses like yours out of business, right? So,
right. It's the follow-up. It's the follow-up. It's the follow-up, right? I mean, people in sales, I think they should know that by now.
Right. So I guess the point being that the whole process, there is just a step-by-step process on how to win those big deals. And it's a formula, and you critique it and you make it better and you make it better. So the first step being, who is your dream buyer? And it's shocking how many businesses don't actually know this. So one of the misconceptions that's happened over the years as it's become, universal, is people think, oh, it's a Dream 100 strategy, so I need 100 businesses, right, which is sometimes very overwhelming for a business that maybe they just need 5. Right. Maybe they even just have 1 in their dream buyer strategy, right? So
go after it.
Exactly. So who are those for you? It could be 50, it could be 20. Right. Another key misconception.
Let me ask you a question though. Let me interrupt for some people, because some people think, well, like I worked with a jeweler, right? And he's like, well, I want to work with celebrities. Celebrities would be my dream buyer. What would you say to that? Because I'll tell you what actually happened, but I'm just curious.
Well, no, now I want to hear what you said.
well, so I was working with your dad at the time, yes, right? And his desire, his thought was that the celebrities would be their dream buyers, but that's not what the analysis said, right? The people who had the most celebrity status, they were the hardest to work with, and they took the most time and they put the most pressure on the price. Believe it or not, they were not the best buyers. So with the analysis, right, he was really able to see, because we don't step back enough to do that analysis. And so that was able to help him to really identify who were the people that he loved to work with and were easiest to work with, and and bought the best of the product. So
you bring up such a brilliant point. This idea that, so I did this when I first came into the business. I thought, okay, who do I need to win? I'm going to win the Fortune 500 as clients to prove to everybody that I can do this. And I'm also going to get, the most celebrity everybody knows. So I got Digital Marketer as a client, which in my sphere is like the #1 marketing training company. I got Panasonic as a client. I went after the big names, but when I started looking back and looking, who are my better clients? Who are the ones that love me? Who are the ones that we work well together, that are effortless and easy? And because it's effortless and easy, they buy the most from you the most often. That is a key part, right? A dream buyer is someone that buys the most from you the most often. And hey, you just love to work with them.
Yes.
It's amazing. So recently in my own dream buyer approach, I've been focusing on businesses that did what I experienced, which was I inherited a company that was running in a very old operating system. Every single sale was made over the phone. We had nothing online, no e-commerce whatsoever. We were running a DOS modem in 2012. I mean, talk about a shocker. It was made in the 80s, like crazy, scary. So I had to bring all of that to today. I had to adapt. I had to innovate. I had to take marketing and put it online in landing pages and emails and automations. And so I've been having so much fun working with clients that are maybe an older approach, like, oh, I only have cold calling, or I get most of my business through referrals. What if you had a system that worked overnight, right? So you weren't always having to pick up the phone and dialing. Now you're getting inbound calls, and they're warm, nurtured prospects that are interested and engaged and want to work with you. So I've been having a blast with that. But at first I went after the shiny objects of like, you are the biggest and the best, and they look the fanciest.
Lured in, right?
Right. Yeah. I love that point that you made.
So we've talked about identifying the best buyer. You talked about sending some things via, post, which, can make you stand out a little bit. How do you bring that then to social media, right? So, let's say the person isn't responding and you want to have those multiple touch points and whatnot. I know you've had some great successes and interesting stories over social media. What are some ideas of how people could put this strategy into practice and use those channels?
Yes. Well, so research reveals that when a employee posts something on social versus the actual brand, you're 7 times more likely to convert a prospect over social if it's just you versus just the brand name title. So, and you're 24 times more likely to get reshared if you post information on social. I found this to be a pivotal point for me. When I heard that market data, I thought, wow, the power of people today has just become extreme, right? The personal brands wasn't so much of a thing 10 years ago. Today, you're seeing so many more CEOs having to brand themselves, salespeople that are having to brand themselves because people want to engage with people. So when you look at social media, the point of social media, I just backtracking because so many people get lost in, I'm spending all this time on social media. I'm trying to build my brand. And for me, in my home, growing up, my father hated the word branding. If you were spending advertising on just getting a brand, it boiled his blood because he thought if you're spending money on advertising, you should be converting leads and generating sales, right? And that was just part of his brilliance. He created this whole system on how to do that. So on social, it just boggles my mind that when people think that social is about building the brand, it's like, no. The point of social, which is the same point of marketing, is to create top of mind awareness, right? Toma, we want to create top of mind awareness so that when that prospect, when that person that's viewing your content gets into the buying now category, they are reaching out to you first because you've been there, you're smiling face, you're doing things. The next point is, what a great way to get the attention of your prospect. So 10 years ago, we had 7 on average. The average marketer was on 7 different marketing mediums. Today, 10 years later, we have 14 different marketing mediums. We have doubled the amount of marketing mediums. It is an absolute overwhelm, the amount of marketing mediums we have. But if we can use it in a sales role, let's say you have a dream 100, you're trying to get the attention of that dream buyer. Instead of just knocking on their front door, going to email, sending them direct mail, now you can send them a LinkedIn message. You can send them a Twitter message. You can send them a Facebook message. You can send them an Instagram message. Right?
Well, why knock on the front door if they're always using the back door to go in and out, right?
That's a good line. That's a good line, Penny.
All right, you can use that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it just makes sense, right? Is that I love that you've got all of those places. Instead of seeing it as an overwhelm, shift that mindset to it's a bigger opportunity to see which ones are the right ones and the best ones for that person, right?
Exactly. So for instance, I was tweeting out to Clay Collins, who's the CEO of Lead Pages at the time, which was the fastest growing company, SaaS company in Minnesota. So it was a fairly large organization. If I had tried to cold call, if I had tried to email, it just would have been lost in the fray.
Right.
But he spends a lot of time on Twitter. So I had been watching his tweets. I've been tweeting along with them, commenting on them. So I got into his periphery. He started to kind of see bits of comments here or there. And then I ran a virtual event where I reached over 5 million entrepreneurs with my virtual event through all of my promotions. And I tweeted him and I said, I have a virtual event coming up. We're going to reach 5 million entrepreneurs. I would love to talk to you about being involved. Got 20 minutes. Within the hour, I heard back from him. Yes, what's the next step? I direct messaged him on Twitter. Hey, let's get on the phone. We discussed it. He got on my thing. And And 8 months later, because of my follow-up, he paid me to get on stage in front of their 600 entrepreneurs at his annual conference, Converted. And that's just one example, right? Of somebody that's on social, that's a high figure, celebrity in the marketing world. So in my industry, it was a celebrity. And then from that, how funny, from that, one of the audience members had a startup. Because he watched me speak, he got into our program. He went through the Dream Buyer course or process, and he ended up landing a $64 million contract in his first 5 weeks. In his first 5 weeks. It was crazy.
It works.
It's just that gift giving, I got my dream buyer, and then he got his dream buyer, and it just,
came around full circle. That's beautiful, right? And that's what I love about this strategy, is that it works. So for people who are listening, it works. And you have to have what your dad had and teaches. You have to have pig-headed discipline. You have to have your PhD, right?
I had to clap there. It was, the only reason why you, person that's listening to this right now, will fail at this strategy is if you do one thing wrong, and that is pig-headed discipline and determination. If you give up, it will be because you lack that pig-headed discipline and determination. My father, he spent 17 years getting Tony as a client, but it turned into a very successful business. So it's just something that never ends. We have another old client that has grown 40% year over year for the last decade. And she's now gone on to sell over 10 million units of her product, which had never even been in the industry. She had created it out of thin air. Carrie Warburg Block, CEO of Earthkind. So it's just something that can continually, you refine it, you get it better, because there's lots of steps. There's 10 steps to deploy a dream buyer strategy. But as you refine them and get each one better and better, it just gets more and more effective.
Absolutely. I want to bring up another point that I think is also really important as to where someone could fail in, because not everybody succeeds, right? In doing this. So, is there another point for you? There's something that comes up for me where you'd say, you know what, when they don't do this or follow, like, is there one of those steps also, what's something else that where they could fall over? It's the discipline and the consistent follow-up, and what else?
Is there one that popped up for you and that's why you're bringing it up?
Well, it's not, I don't have your process right in my head right now. Right. But I was just thinking of people who are approaching to get my attention. Right.
Yeah.
And so, like, over LinkedIn, you get these like stuff that comes out at you. Right. And so I think, and what I like then to hear, your opinion on this and where this fits into that process, it has to be relevant, right? You have to, if you're going to stalk somebody, so to speak, right? If you're going to really want to be in somebody's sphere and you're going to want them to notice you, you're going to have to be relevant. You're going to have to add value. You're going to have to know what value is to that person. And I think that that's a huge area where people fail, is they just talk about themselves and think about themselves, and they'll write like this really long thing with all of these videos. And I'm like, I'm not going to look at that. Like, thank you for sending me 2 pages of whatever, but I'm not interested. So what would you say to that whole relevancy value, to that point?
I 100% agree with you. It's step number 3, building the value. So if, let's say that you send out,
I didn't have on my mind which step.
Yeah.
So there you go.
So if you, so let's say that you send out messages to 100 people on LinkedIn. Roughly, research reveals that roughly around 3% of those are in that buying now category. So if you're saying, hey, I'd like to talk to you about my service. Hey, I provide coaching services. Only 3 out of those 100 will be interested in that buying now. And then of those 3, they're looking at competitors as well, right? So they're not just looking at you, they're doing their research. So it's very difficult if all you're asking, if you're providing is saying, let's talk about my service, me. You're missing out on 90% of that buyer's pyramid. So we teach this, chapter 4 of the Ultimate Sales Machine. You can get it for free online on my website, whatever. But we'll
get the link and put it on the show notes.
So that buyer's pyramid, 3% are interested in buying now. If you think of a triangle, for those that are just listening, do people just listen to audio too for this, or they see it in video?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. There's some
Okay.
people just listening through the podcast. Some people are going to be here on YouTube.
Okay, so I'll explain it so that people that are just listening to audio can understand. So if you draw a triangle, you draw a little line at the 3% of the tip of that triangle, that's the buying now. Then another line at around 7% of that triangle, they're open to it, right? They're maybe not buying right the second, but they're in this sphere, they're doing their research. Another 30%, so you do another line, are not thinking about it. And then another 30% think they're not interested. And then the last 30% are definitely not interested. So if you create some kind of call to action that is educational, that talks to them about what's keeping them up at night. What are they having meetings about that day that you could talk to that will educate them and bring them into the, oh yeah, I'm actually interested in what you have to say, brings them up through that buyer's pyramid so that they get to that buying now category. That is a huge part of the dream buyer strategy, is that messaging, so that it is educational, so that it grabs them. I can give some examples of that too.
Well, I think what would be good, because I like to keep these short to the point, and we want people to be able to find out. So where could they go to find out more about the process for the best buyer?
Yes. I would recommend going to ultimatesalesmachine.com, the name of the book. That will take you to a 3-part series, a free video series that will teach our 1 hour a week formula and how to double your sales. So it'll have 3 different videos. One is about the dream buyer strategy. Another one is about how to get 9 times more impact from every move you make. That's the messaging piece. And then another one on hiring sales superstars. So that would be a great place, ultimatesalesmachine.com.
Okay, fantastic. We'll put that in the notes. So before we wrap up, I just want to ask you a couple of different questions that I ask a lot of different people that I'm interviewing. Yes. So first of all, I'm interested, especially because you come from, a very creative side. So this business thing is on top of this, creative spirit that you are, right?
Yes.
So how do you define productivity and why?
To me, productivity is, I think a crucial part is creating an efficient schedule that gets you the results in an effortless and easy way where you're proactive versus reactive.
Awesome. So I also ask, and I like to know about, apps that you think, because people, a lot of times they love tools, right? It's not all about the tools, but people like to know, what if you had your phone and it was erased and you had to add things back outside of your schedule and your email and those basic apps, what would be the first thing that you add back that brings you the greatest amount of productivity? Or joy, I should say.
You mean apps that help me with productivity?
Yeah, like something that just helps make your life easier, right? Or helps you get things done faster, or helps you get organized. Like, what would you add back, right? Your phone is blank. There's nothing on it except for your calendar and your email. What are you going to add back?
This is a weird, I'm sorry, I can't answer your question because I feel that the apps usually deter me away. But the thing that I do, which I feel should be an app, is my father's 6 steps to time management secrets of billionaires. So that is the one thing that I do outside of my phone. Every morning, I actually take out a piece of paper and I write down this whole process on how to schedule my day, adding in being proactive versus reactive time, and it increases my productivity by 500% easy. That is the one thing that keeps me clean and clear and on schedule and producing the results I need and prioritizing correctly. And then, I can have fun on my phone with all the apps that take you away into the
I guess you should create an app for that.
I need to, and I've been wanting to. Yeah.
So there you go. That would be your first app that you put on, is your own app that you're going to
Yes.
create.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, because sometimes people have little tools. Like I use a little thing called Text Expander, and it's
Oh,
fantastic.
okay.
I can just say hashtag bio, and every time my bio will just appear in whatever
Oh,
app
that's
I'm in.
nice.
You know what I
Wow.
mean? So like sometimes it's just, and it saves me a couple of hours a week because I'm constantly using certain paragraphs of text and things like that. So
Hmm.
sometimes people have these little things that they love that nobody's heard of, and want to bring light to some of those.
Right. I love that. Sorry, it was just so much in my face that my response. I couldn't even get to what.
Oh, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's all good. It's all good. And so do you miss, just a kind of personal question or two. Do you miss singing? Are you still singing? Like where's that part of you that was, that 24-year-old who was doing all that creative spirit stuff?
It's so funny that you say that, because so I had released my fourth record right before my father got ill. Like I was pretty far on my career and my focus. I'm good at getting focused, and then I left it for the last decade. It's been a decade since I released an album, and I spent several years not listening to any pop music whatsoever and only listening to Sanskrit chants. I study under an Indian saint, and just being as clean and clear as possible. I feel that a lot of music out there today is it brings you down instead of lifting you up. And the beauty of music can be to elevate you to a whole nother level. And recently, I actually, in this room right now, I just rented a bunch of equipment to record my next record. And I find it very valuable, because when I was hitting up against a lot of fear of, taking over this company and having all these limiting beliefs, and afraid of getting on a big call, or whatever it may be, I would use music to be able to get me through that and help me get out of my limiting beliefs. All of these different positive songs that I would use, and mantras and such. So I thought, wow, I bet you our clients would love that too, that heads of businesses need this. So I'm recording something right now to give executives the ability to listen to it, feel uplifted, and then go into a sales call, a dream buyer call, right?
Yeah.
I think if I could merge those two worlds together, it'd be pretty beautiful, because that's what I've used. I'm sure it would help others.
Oh, I'm sure. And I think music is a an emotional portal for people, right? In different ways. And so you do need to be careful what you're listening to, because it can also have, just like anything, who you hang out with or anything can have an emotional impact in a productive or destructive type of way. But so I love that. I love that you're getting back into that, and that you're, looking to combine it with what you're doing now. I'm sure it's inspired and will be something different.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll see.
Excited to see what you come up with.
I'll let you know.
So thank you so much for being here and sharing, your wisdom. I know this is only, the tip of the iceberg for, all of the strategies that you're working with, and the stories that you have. So thank you, for sharing, and hopefully we'll have you on again.
Such a pleasure, Penny. Thank you so much. It was a joy.
Oh, great. And thank you guys for being here. And I know that, there's a part of you that says, I know this. And I want you to throw that part out, and I want you to listen to this again, because if you're not getting the results, then you don't know this, you're not doing this. So, everything that we talked about here are strategies that are tried and true that will help you to work smarter, to live the Pareto principle. And I think that's a lot of what I talk about, a lot of what this podcast is about helping you to live the 20%, is to understand in every area of your life where you can find that 20%. And this is a direct strategy on how to find it, and then how to go after it. So now it's up to you guys, put it into practice. I want to hear from you. So please do reach out, definitely reach out to Amanda, and go check out that website that'll be in the show notes, The Ultimate Sales Machine. And we look forward to seeing you in the next episode. My name is Penny Zanker, and this is Take Back Time. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.